The sun's glow shimmered upon an endless expanse of golden dunes, reflecting in a haze that danced across the horizon. A single figure walked along the desert crest, unwavering despite the hostile heat. He was Bahram, a wanderer by necessity, a hero by fate. With each step, tiny grains of sand slid away beneath his worn leather boots. His dark hair clung to the sweat on his brow, and yet the intensity in his eyes never wavered. He had journeyed far in search of the hidden oasis, rumoured to cure any sickness and quell any thirst, but above all it was said to be plagued by monstrous beasts. Unravelling these stories was his mission, for wherever evil threatened, Bahram felt compelled to stand against it. Scorpion legends were common in those parts of Persia. In the caravansary on the outskirts, locals told tales of giant stingers, each as long as a man's forearm, engorged with venom that could kill in an instant. The caravans that ventured near that oasis often never returned, leaving behind only whispers of terror. Merchants insisted that the desert around the hidden spring teemed with scorpions the size of small dogs. Though few had seen them and lived to tell the tale, the rumours were consistent enough to be believed. Most travellers dismissed the story as an exaggeration, but Bahram was no stranger to the outlandish. Long ago, he fought off a monstrous lion that threatened a small village. He had rescued a caravan from raiders, turned aside a ferocious desert serpent, and was recognized in many quarters for his bravery. He made little of such praise, believing that skill counted for nothing without humility and compassion. Within him burned a determination to test his mettle against all manner of twisted monstrosities. When word spread that scorpions prowled a certain oasis, terrifying those who might otherwise seek refuge there, he decided to investigate. He kept walking. After hours exposed to the scorching sun, the silhouette of palm trees shimmered in the distance. A deep relief surged inside him. The desert was harsh to those who took it lightly, but Bahram knew it was wise to conserve his energy, to plan every step as though it might be his last. Stepping onto firmer ground near the palm grove, he felt a mild sense of comfort. Soon he would have fresh water, he hoped, and shade. His lips were cracked, and he craved even the slightest breeze on his face. The soft rustling of palm fronds offered a moment of solace. Beneath those ancient trunks, the air felt marginally cooler. Bahram advanced, constantly alert. He had learned never to let his guard down. A large earthen basin filled with water lay at the oasis's center, reflecting both sky and treetops in shimmering ripples. He started to kneel, dipping his fingers into the clear liquid to test its cleanliness, when something skittered across a nearby cluster of rocks. He froze. The movement was swift, silent except for a faint scrape. He stood still, senses sharper. Then he saw it, a gargantuan scorpion, easily reaching up to his knee in height, its glistening chitin reflecting an oily sheen. The creature's massive pincers flexed in readiness, and its thick, curved tail hovered above its back. Bahram had encountered scorpions before, but never one so large. Certainly, these were neither figments nor exaggerations. They were monstrous reality. His hand reached reflexively for his sword's hilt, a scimitar inherited from his father, who had once spoken proudly of forging it from steel laced with meteorite shards. The scorpion's elongated tail moved in a slow wave, as though testing the air. Bahram met its stare with calm determination. He knew these creatures acted swiftly. If cornered, they would strike. He also knew that scorpion venom was lethal enough to rob a grown man of life's last breath within minutes. The local legends suggested these monstrous beasts may have developed an even more potent venom. Caution was paramount. A shout echoed from deeper within the oasis. Bahram's gaze darted toward the noise. Could someone else be there, struggling against these scorpions? The cry sounded desperate, cut short by a guttural hiss. Another scorpion emerged from the shadows, this one the size of a small donkey. Its stinger glowed with a dull purple venom that seemed to swirl within the translucent bulb. Bahram wondered if these creatures had somehow mutated or been touched by dark magic. Whatever their origins, he had no time to ruminate. There were people in danger. Suppressing his thirst, he moved deliberately around the water's edge, eyes locked on the nearest scorpion. It scuttled sideways, pincers clacking in a menacing rhythm. Bahram darted forward, sword raised. The scorpion tried to pivot its tail for a strike, but Bahram anticipated the movement. With a swift slash, he cleaved through one of its pincers, generating a high-pitched screech. The creature's tail lashed out, scraping Bahram's shoulder, leaving a slender gash. He felt a searing burn on his skin, but he pressed on. One more strike, and the creature collapsed onto its back, tail curling lifelessly. He pressed his hand onto the wound on his shoulder. A trickle of blood stained his tunic's sleeve. Fortunately, it seemed the scorpion had not managed a full sting, only a grazing blow. Had the barbed hook sliced deeper, Bahram would likely already be incapacitated. He clenched his teeth as he advanced, ignoring the pain that began to swell in the wound. Past a cluster of date palms, he found a group of travelers clustered into a tight circle, makeshift weapons in hand. Among them was an older man wearing a merchant's robe, trembling as two monstrous scorpions menaced them. His daughter, no older than 12, clutched his waist, eyes brimming with terror. The second monstrous scorpion hissed, inching forward with its tail raised, while its partner circled behind the travelers. Bahram let out a battle cry, shaking fresh adrenaline into his veins, then charged past the travelers to split the scorpion's attack. The first creature lunged. He swung his scimitar in a clean arc, forcing it to scuttle backward. The second scorpion tried to strike the merchant from behind, but Bahram positioned himself in the path. Frantically negotiating the two scorpions' movements, he ducked and wove with each stinger thrust. At a crucial moment, he lunged forward, sinking his blade directly into the chitin plating near the scorpion's head. The creature let out a hideous squeal, thrashing and pinching the air in its death throes. Meanwhile, the remaining scorpion attempted to cut Bahram off, hooking its tail in a downward strike. Bahram pivoted, letting the stinger whiz past his side, too close for comfort. Rising, he grabbed the tail with his free hand and wrenched the appendage aside. Though the force nearly knocked him off balance, simultaneously, he ripped his sword free of the fallen scorpion and slashed the second attacker in one fluid motion. Although the blow was not fatal, it lodged in the scorpion's segmented abdomen, splitting its armor. The monster recoiled, leaking a viscous fluid that sizzled when it touched the ground. Within seconds, it crumpled. Panting, Bahram quickly turned to the group. "Is anyone injured?" he asked. His accent echoed the cadence of the southwestern provinces, where he'd spent his childhood. The merchant shakily patted his daughter's hair, tears streaking the dust on his own cheeks. He confirmed they were unharmed, frightened, but alive. "Thank the heavens you arrived," the merchant said, voice quavering. "We came to rest here, but we were ambushed. There were 5 of us travelers. 2 have already fallen to these monstrosities." His voice caught in his throat. "I haven't seen such beasts in all my life." Bahram regarded the carcasses that lay in the dusty soil. "I have heard rumors of giant scorpions in this region," he said. "But these are unlike anything I've faced before. Their venom is potent. We must be vigilant." The old man introduced himself as Rashid, a spice trader, and the girl as Ziba, his only daughter. They had been trying to journey west, carrying saltwater saffron, cardamom, and cinnamon, but caravans were avoiding the route because of the scorpion stories. So Rashid took a gamble. Now his merchandise lay scattered around, a chest of spices half submerged in sand. He doubted any trade could be done now that they'd lost most of their companions. Ziba clung to her father as Bahram scanned the oasis. The area was more extensive than he'd initially realized. Date palms and shrubs circled the main water source, overshadowing smaller pockets of shallow puddles. With the threat of giant scorpions, no animals drank here. Bahram could not even hear bird song. A tense hush hovered, reminding him that danger still lurked. His mind raced as he tried to make sense of these mutated beasts. Perhaps the desert had warped them, Or there could be some malevolent presence that allowed the scorpions to grow to such unnatural proportions. "We cannot remain here," Rashid uttered. "If we press on, we might perish in the dunes with no water, but if we stay, we'll be stung and devoured by these creatures." Bahram wiped the sweat from his brow. "We'll find a way to drive them out or destroy them," he said, though a knot of uncertainty coiled within him. It was feasible that more scorpions nested deeper within the oasis, or beneath the sands, waiting to emerge under cover of night. He could sense something pulsing in the hush, as though an undercurrent of malevolence seeped through the desert floor. Ziba tugged at her father's sleeve timidly, eyes locked on Bahram. "Can you save us?" she asked in a whisper, her voice carrying a fragile hope. Bahram offered her a reassuring nod, though inside he questioned what might come next. He and Rashid agreed to gather what supplies they could. They found pouches of dried fruits, a small jug of water, and a few spices. Among the tattered remains of their caravan, they salvaged a tent cloth, which Bahram proposed they stretch between a few palm trunks to provide some measure of cover. Darkness in a desert oasis could be treacherous. Under the moonlight, scorpions often hunted with heightened cunning. Night soon crept over the dunes, the desert cooled, and the horizon glowed with the faint shimmer of stars. Bahram, Rashid, and Ziba sat near a small fire built from dead fronds. The girl busied herself peeling a single date, attempting to make the meagre rations last. Occasionally, Bahram glanced at the shadows cast by moonlight, searching for movement. So far, the scorpions had not returned. "They say that near," Rashid explained softly, his eyes flicking nervously toward the darkness. "But I have never heard of scorpions this large, nor have I heard of them gathering in such numbers to hunt." Bahram frowned. "Something must be influencing them. In my travels, I've encountered illusions conjured by dark magics, curses cast by malevolent forces. I suspect there's a power behind these scorpions' monstrous transformations. We have to find it if we want to make the oasis safe." Just then, a dull chittering rose from the far side of the water. The flickering firelight illuminated the hulking silhouette of yet another scorpion, this one with a distinctly different coloration. Its carapace nearly white, milky and shimmering almost ethereally. It skittered across a rock, pausing as though to gauge the intruders. Bahram stiffened, hand tightening around his sword. But before he could stand, the creature vanished into the brush. Ziba's hand clutched her father's arm. "It's like they're watching us," she whispered, "waiting for something." Instead of giving chase blindly, Bahram waited. Hours of tense silence followed, punctuated only by the faint chirp of nocturnal insects. Finally, the three of them dozed off in turns. Though the scorpions did not mount a second assault that night, Bahram awoke at every crunch or rustle, sword half drawn. Beneath the blanket of stars, it felt as though the oasis itself was alive with eyes. At the first light of dawn, he stood, determined to search the area. After cautioning Rashid and Ziba to remain in the makeshift camp and remain vigilant, Bahram moved deeper into the oasis. He advanced slowly, scanning the dense clusters of shrubs, stepping lightly to avoid noise. He soon discovered a faint track in the sand, a meandering path that slithered among the palm trunks. It seemed too wide to be from normal scorpions, let alone ones the size of the creatures encountered. That alone spoke volumes. Sword in hand, he proceeded, following the strange trail. The path led him to a rocky outcrop in the oasis's northern boundary. Over the centuries, wind and water had carved peculiar shapes in the stone. At one end, boulders formed a natural archway leading into darkness. Within that archway, the path's marks deepened, as though heavy bodies had repeatedly scuttled in and out. Bahram whispered a silent prayer for strength. This might be their lair, or perhaps an underground chamber. He crouched to examine the sand. Amid the scorpion tracks, he discerned a different pattern drag marks, possibly from a person or an animal forcibly carried inside. As he moved a few steps into the gloom, a rancid smell assaulted him, the stench of rot mingled with something chemical and pungent. The cavern walls were draped in thick, cobweb-like strands, but upon closer inspection, he saw they were actually sticky trails of scorpion secretions. Beneath them lay half-skeletal remains of goats, desert foxes, and even humans. The sight tightened his gut. Fueling a righteous anger, determined not to lose his composure, he pressed deeper. Then, from the far recesses of the cave, came a scraping sound like stone on stone. Rum-Hum stilled himself, gripping his scimitar. Emerging into flickering light through cracks in the rock ceiling that let in beams of morning sun, was a monstrous shape. At first, he thought it was just another scorpion, albeit larger than the rest. But as it advanced, he saw horns protruding from the sides of its head. A scorpion demon, he thought. Its eyes gleamed with an unearthly violet hue, and in place of a single tail stinger, it boasted a cluster of smaller barbs, each dripping with the same purple fluid he had seen the night before. The plating of its exoskeleton glistened as though freshly polished, capturing stray light and reflecting it in ghostly patterns on the cavern walls. A breath caught in Bahram's throat. He suspected this monstrous being was the broodmother, or even an infernal champion behind the scorpion plague. Legends abounded of shape-shifting devs, demons, in Persian folklore. Some, it was said, took on hybrid forms to command lesser beasts. This abomination must be orchestrating the scorpion's strategic raids, harnessing them as an army. The creature issued a guttural hiss that reverberated through the cave. Then, to Bahram's astonishment, a harsh, gurgling voice penetrated his mind. "You trespass in my domain, mortal. This desert has belonged to us for centuries. Leave, lest you join the bones scattered at our threshold." Bahram realized he faced more than a mere monster. It had the cunning and presence of an ancient evil. Fear battered at his courage, but he steadied himself. "I've come to free travelers from your tyranny," he declared. "No more bodies will line your lair. Your reign of venom ends here." He dashed forward, scimitar shimmering in the intermittent cave light. The monstrous scorpion demon struck. Its tail cluster lashed out like multiple whips, each barbed tip aimed with precision. Bahram dodged aside, slicing at one of the tails. Sparks glanced off the thick chitin. One tail barb was severed, spraying purple venom that sizzled where it landed on the cavern floor. Furious, the beast let out a shriek that rattled the walls. In a savage counterattack, the demon lunged with its front pincers, each the size of a man's torso. Bahram rolled away just in time, though a pincer brushed his foot, nearly crushing it. He felt adrenaline surge. Any direct hit by those weapons would mean instant death. With measured breath, he circled, searching for weaknesses in its armor. The demon twisted, prepared another volley of tail strikes. He timed his steps carefully, feinting toward the left, then reversing direction. With the demon's tails flailing wildly, Bahram aimed for an exposed gap near the creature's underside. He sliced once, twice finding soft tissue. The scorpion demon screeched, scuttling backward, giving Bahram a chance to push his advantage. Yet the demon was not finished. It bellowed a monstrous call, echoing through the depths. From the shadows emerged more giant scorpions, smaller than the demon, but still formidable. They rushed forward, pincers clacking, stingers brandished. Bahram clenched his jaw. It would be suicide to stand in the open, fighting a mass of enemies. He had to work strategically, employing the tight quarters to his advantage. He leapt upon a ledge of rock along the cavern wall, drawing two scorpions to scramble up after him. A swift foot shoved the first off the edge as it tried to climb, sending it tumbling onto the stones below. The second reared up, tail stabbing the air in frustration. Bahram lunged downward, burying his scimitar in its bulbous head. Meanwhile, the demon snapped its pincers, cracking a stalagmite in two. Chunks of stone crashed to the ground. Rubble clogged part of the cavern, leaving only a narrow gap for Bahram to maneuver. He realized he needed to separate the demon from its minions. Using the narrow path to his advantage, he managed to slip through, effectively forcing only one scorpion at a time to challenge him. Another monstrous scorpion lunged, and he parried with a well-timed blow, severing its stinger. The next scorpion hesitated, giving Bahram a moment to scramble to a higher vantage. Below, the demon assembled its brood, snapping commands in otherworldly hisses. Bahram noticed the demon's eyes never left him, brimming with malevolence. Holding his breath, he spotted a cluster of stalactites overhead. If he could lure the demon beneath those, perhaps he could break them off and crush it, but it would require the right angle. Gathering his courage, he leapt to the cavern floor, brandishing his sword in a wide arc. The demon advanced, tails thrashing. He took a deliberately risky stance, as though to challenge it head-on, calling out, "Fight me alone if you dare!" Furious at the affront, the demon charged, pincers snapping. When the scorpion brood tried to follow, the demon shrieked at them to stay back, evidently wanting to vanquish Bahram itself. Bahram retreated, step by step. Glancing upward, he marked the largest stalactite. He waited. The demon reared up, preparing to bring its pincers down in a crushing blow. As it lunged, Bahram flung his body to the side, raised his scimitar, and struck at the base of the stalactite, using the demon's momentum for additional force. The entire formation shuddered, then gave way. A moment later, rock thundered down onto the demon's broad back. Cracks split its exoskeleton, purple ichor pooling. The scorpion demon let loose a shriek that felt like 1,000 desert winds tearing at the soul. One side of its body flattened under the rubble, tails pinned. From its shattered flank, venom hissed where it touched the ground. Although it still lived, the demon's movements had slowed. Bahram approached. Vantage gained. The demon glared at him, hatred seething. Summoning reserves of wrath, it managed to lift a pincer in a desperate attempt to slash him, but Bahram evaded, stepping around the pinned carapace. He found a gap in the armor near the creature's neck, if it even could be called a neck. Raising his scimitar overhead, he delivered a final strike. The blade bit deep into the demon's flesh, and the scorpion demon emitted one final, tortured cry before falling silent. For an instant, he braced himself for a surge of magic or vile retribution, but the demon simply lay impaled. Slowly, the brood of giant scorpions surrounding them began to skitter about, disoriented, pincers clacking in uncertainty. Bereft of their leader's control, they appeared disorganized. A few attempted to carry away chunks of the demon's body. Others scurried into darkness, scattering deeper into uncharted caverns. While it would take time to cleanse every last monstrous scorpion from the oasis, the locus of the evil had been defeated. Its stranglehold broken, exhausted, Bahram emerged from the cavern, stumbling into the morning sun. The fresh desert air filled his lungs. In the distance, he spotted Rashid and Ziba. They rushed toward him, faces etched with concern. Bahram was streaked with dust, sweat, and smears of the demon's venom, but the blaze in his eyes made it clear he had triumphed. Ziba's face brightened when she saw him. "You returned?" she exclaimed. "Did you defeat them?" Bahram nodded wearily. "Their leader is slain," he said, trying to catch his breath. "The brood is still out there, but without the demon to guide them, the threat should be drastically diminished. In time, we can hunt them down, or they may scatter farther into the desert." Rashid looked overcome with relief. "You have saved refuge at this oasis will no longer face certain death. How can we ever repay such courage?" Bahram shook his head, humility in his voice. "I need no payment. The safety of living souls is recompense enough." He eyed the oasis, which was now bathed in bright morning light. In the leaves of the palm trees, a faint breeze rustled. For the first time since entering this place, Bahram heard bird calls returning. But if any choose to remain or pass through here in peace, perhaps build a shrine to ward off lingering evil. Pray for travelers, share water freely. Let the memory of those who died here guide kindness to the next generation. Rashid placed a hand to his heart. "You will always have our gratitude." Ziba too smiled. tears welling in her eyes as she offered Bahram a small pouch of saffron. Though meagre, it was her father's livelihood, and Bahram recognized it as a gesture of gratitude far greater than its monetary value. The day wore on. Eventually, other travelers, hearing that danger had ebbed, appeared on the horizon, drawn by stories that the giant scorpions and their diabolical master had been slain by a lone hero. Those scorpion carcasses lay scattered. The shadow of fear lifted from the once threatening oasis. With concerted effort, people helped bury the dead and burn the remains of the scorpions, ensuring their venom would taint no one else. Some hunters volunteered to flush out any survivors lurking in the caves. As for the monstrous brood, rumors spread they had split into factions, wandering the desert, aimless and disorganized. Later that afternoon, Bahram knelt by the oasis pool, carefully washing the wound on his shoulder, which throbbed with a dull ache. He realized now that the demon's venom, diluted though it was, could still fester if not cleansed properly. Fortunately, with the demon's presence gone, the water no longer seemed contaminated by darkness. The reflection that stared back at him in the pool was weary yet resolute. Within those quiet moments, he allowed himself to feel gratitude for surviving. He had been close to death, pinned beneath that beast's monstrous tail. If not for quick reflexes, a lesser warrior might have succumbed. Rashid and Ziba planned to pack up and continue on their journey, hoping to reach the bustling markets in the west with the spices that remained. Before they departed, Rashid pressed a coin purse into Bahram's hand. "At least take this," he said. "If not for you, my Ziba would be, I cannot even say. Let this help you on your journeys, so you can continue protecting the innocent." Though Bahram's first instinct was to decline, he recognized that refusing Rashid's gift might dishonor the merchant's sincerity. He accepted with a bow of his head. Ziba gave him a small embroidered cloth she had carried from her late mother, a delicate creation with intricate patterns of flowers. She placed it in Bahram's palm, eyes shining with gratitude. "For good luck," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. As afternoon light slanted, Bahram guided them to the edge of the oasis and watched as they trudged into the west, toward the rolling dunes and out of sight. He lingered a while longer, making sure any new arrivals knew which parts of the oasis to avoid until further clearance of scorpions. Some travelers hailed him as a legend, others simply thanked him. But once the immediate crisis was over and the pool of the oasis calm, Bahram knew his path must continue onward. A hero's calling was not to remain in one place, but to keep watch for any darkness that threatened innocent lives. Thus he set out, continuing eastward deeper into the desert, the scimitar by his side. The demon's presence had revealed that new evils could take root in the remotest corners of the land. The world was vast, filled with unseen horrors and hidden wonders. As the sun lowered, he took one final look at the oasis behind him. It now felt freer, as though the land exhaled a long-held breath. Somewhere among the date palms and the calm waters, the memory of heroism and hope would live on. Silent dunes stretched ahead of him, shimmering with the last traces of day. The sky turned soft orange, then faded to violet. With measured steps, Bahram vanished once more into the endless desert, uncertain of what new challenge awaited him beyond the next horizon, but certain that he would meet it with the unwavering resolve that drove him ever onward.